with the exception of, one or two students, and there's a couple all the time who, you want to beat to death.
Stick my lower lip out then and decide I'm going to show them and I'm not going to have fun.
Even though if she called you up late at night and talked to you for 2 hours and it was mostly apologizing for bothering you, so that it's just one more layer of frosting, which is just something that goes along with kind of a depressive temperament. So there's a lot of narcissism and self-hatred.
I have friends who would not cross the street to hear me convert.
And the apologizing for being smart, I think, can very easily become trying to head off potential criticism from you by acknowledging that I can get there first and deprecate myself so that you don't get a chance to do it. And
friend, and she has multiple sclerosis, and that's a very bad thing for a young woman.
That's no fun.
No.
I'm interested in misogyny.
We all worship, and we all have a religious impulse. We can choose to an extent what we worship, but the myth that we worship nothing and give ourselves away to nothing is simply sets us up to give ourselves away to something different. For instance, pleasure, or drugs, or the idea of having a lot of money and being able to buy nice stuff.
I'm an early boomer. I'm right on him. I'm at 49. And
There's medication for that,
There's what?
Nothing.
I am taking it, Claritin, but it's not enough. It really doesn't go to the root.
It was a premature ejaculation pun. So.
Oh.
Actually, in entertainment and marketing culture, that very much appeals to people as individuals. That you don't have to be devoted or subservient to anything else. There is no larger good than your own good and your own happiness.
I don't think irresolvability is really what feels real to me, because once you've determined that something is in fact irresolvable, well, it sounds like I'm just playing with words, but you've really resolved it.
Language like that, the wounded inner child, the inner pain, is part of a kind of pop psychological movement in the United States that is a sort of popular Freudianism that has its own paradox, which is that the more we're taught to list and resent the things of which we were deprived as children, the more we live in that anger and frustration, and the more we remain children. I mean, that's a very simple way of putting it. But
part of me, I don't like it when I read, but I'm happy to sit in a movie theater in front of a big, lush, hoary corporate entertainment and just be immersed by and I kind of know what's going to happen.
How are you dealing with all this fame? Now you're in everybody's literary lips these days.
I think the amount of people whose lips talk about literary stuff is small enough so that I think it's sort of like it's the amount of fame equivalent to being a small market TV weatherman. So
One of the scary things about sort of the nihilism of contemporary culture is that we're really setting ourselves up for fascism, because as we empty more and more kind of values, motivating principles, spiritual principles almost out of the culture, we're creating a hunger that eventually is going to drive us to the sort of state where we may accept fascism.
I don't know if you're like me. I have a really hard time having fun anytime that somebody gets in my face, grabs me by the lapels and screams, "We're having fun now."
Most of the voices, at least for me, even the most misogynistic ones, have elements of fear and insecurity and loneliness that I identify with. I mean, a couple of these are very close to some stuff that I have done and said in my career. That particularly, there's some really craven breakup monologues where, baby, you're quitting your job and moving out here I put so much pressure on me that I can't stand it, and now I need you to move back out. Kind of charming stuff I did in my 20s.
I see a paradox here. I'm going to talk about the difficulties of having to deal with the media, but I'm talking to the media.
Sure.
Right? See, I'll pretend I'm talking to you, but when the show's, you're going to have this face, sweaty face, on camera, talking about how difficult it is as a writer to be on camera, in which case, if I were the viewer, I would go, so why is the son of a bitch on camera?
I live near a slaughterhouse, and my second date with my current girlfriend, we went to watch a cow get slaughtered.
But she didn't like herself either, so she would have predicted that I didn't like her.
Right.
it seems to me at 42 that the older one gets, the more autumnal one gets, and that what gives a lot of emotions its resonance is a sense of finitude and a kind of bittersweetness, and it's actually quite beautiful. But it also may be that I'm just kind of sick and need some sort of medication, and that in fact joy and dancing and lightheartedness is the real thing informing all of that.
There's that some of the sadness that it seems to me kind of infuses the culture right now has to do with this loss of a sense of purpose or organizing principles, something you're willing to give yourself away to, basically. And that the addictive impulse, which is very much kind of in the cultural air right now, is interesting and powerful only because it's a kind of obvious distortion of kind of a religious impulse. Or
the American economic and cultural systems that work very well in terms of selling people products and keeping the economy thriving do not work as well when it comes to educating children or helping us help each other know how to live and to be happy, if that word means anything. Clearly it means something different from whatever I want to do. I want to take this cup and throw it right now. I have every right to. I should. I mean, that we've seen it. We see it with children. That's not happiness. That feeling of having to obey every impulse and gratify every desire it seems to me to be a strange kind of slavery.
That I feel about the current situation is so upset and so negative that I know that were I to do something, I would just be one more spittle-spewing person hopping up and down, and that right now, for whatever reason, I don't have the balance required to do it.
It needed to be said, and that there weren't other ways to say that.
I feel like I want to ask you to adopt me. I mean,
television and corporate entertainment, in order to make, because it's so expensive, in order to make money, it has to appeal to a very wide audience, which means it has to find things that a lot of people have in common. And I don't know about you, but here, I think what most of us have in common here are our very most base, uninteresting, selfish, stupid interests.
The horrible thing was these sweet little freckle-faced, gap-toothed kids trying terribly hard to win ribbons, and on the judges' rostrum are sitting three guys in string ties, and it turns out they are from meat companies, which buy the winners. And it wasn't at all clear from the kids' faces that they knew, what was going on. Congratulations, you get $1,000, and Daisy's going to be chopped up for hamburgers.
Yeah.
The depressed person lady just has another spin on that, which is that she's so worried about that feeling you have of dread that she's calling, that she's going to try to get in there and hate herself for it before you can, and there's a great deal more narcissism in her.
Well, I don't think it is at all.
I wasn't suggesting you were one of the people.
I know, but you accused me of being some kind of mean before, but that...
Now we'll lapse into this sort of politeness roulette.
No, I
necessarily because, but...
What would, if somebody asked you that, what would you off the top of your head have to say about Joel?
I don't know, I'm not much of a well-known writer, so... But to get back to maybe another question that you...
Like, am I pro-Joyce?
That very often humor is a response to things that are difficult. In the U.S., there's a strange situation where, in some respects, humor and irony are political responses, and they're redemptive. And in another sense, particularly in popular entertainment, irony and a kind of dark humor can become a way of it's pretending to protest when it really isn't.
And commercial. And there's nothing wrong with commercial, but it tends to be very tight, Freytag's triangle thing. And
I don't know, what is that?
Oh, what is that? Does anybody know? It looks like a triangle with kind of a little, erection at the end of it. And
women being objectified, being the object of a certain kind of gaze, I don't think very much gets talked about in terms of men's terror of women's judgment of them, and not just judgment of them sexually, but judgment of them existentially, humanistically, and that in a whole lot of cases, the reason it's very tempting to objectify women, or to use any of the very kind of standard, unoriginal male withdraw and don't deal with women tactics, is that the idea of being perceived and judged by the other, by another subjectivity is incredibly horrifying.
Forms of art that offer us escapes from ourselves and our daily lives, and I think that's fine in small doses. And then there are kinds of art that offer us more sort of confrontation with our own lives. And I don't think it's surprising that there isn't as much demand or as much money in the latter.
And thank you, David, for joining me.
Thank you.
My associate producer is Melinda Single.
I'm now going to beat my head against the wall for 30 seconds.
The engineer today, you won't hear this, is Jennifer Swadek. I'm Michael Silverblatt. Join me again. No, he actually is. Stop. On Bookworm.